It was a calm evening when Nora came home from her long shift at the hospital. She was tired, her back ached, and her hands smelled faintly of disinfectant. All she wanted was to rest for a few minutes, maybe have a quiet dinner with her daughter Lily. But the moment she opened the door, she knew something wasn't right. The lights were dim and the apartment was unusually silent. Usually Lily would come running toward her, wrapping her little arms around her waist, smiling with that missing tooth grin that could melt any bad day away. But that evening there was no laughter, no footsteps, only quiet breathing from the corner of the room. Nora set down her bag and called softly, "Lily?" From behind the couch a small face peeked out. Lily's eyes looked tired and red as if she had been crying. Nora's heart instantly grew heavy. She went closer and knelt down. "Hey, sweetie, what's wrong?" Lily didn't answer. She just ran into her mother's arms and held her tight, her small hands shaking slightly. Nora hugged her back, rubbing her back gently, whispering, "It's okay, Mommy's home now." After a few minutes, Lily calmed down. Nora lifted her onto the couch, brought her some warm milk, and asked again, "Did something happen at school today?" Lily shook her head. "Then what's bothering you?" Lily just whispered, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" It wasn't the first time she had asked that lately. Over the past few weeks, Lily had become unusually quiet. She didn't talk much, didn't draw her favorite cartoons anymore, and sometimes woke up crying in the middle of the night. Nora thought maybe it was because of her long hours at work. She had been doing extra shifts to cover expenses. Sometimes she left early and came home late, leaving Lily with their neighbor's teenage son Ryan, who often helped watch her. He seemed like a good kid, polite, well-spoken, and always willing to lend a hand when Nora was in a hurry. But lately, something about Lily's behavior didn't sit right with Nora. She remembered one morning, while tying Lily's shoelaces, the little girl had flinched when Nora's hand brushed her arm. It was a small thing, but mothers noticed the little things. That night, after putting Lily to sleep, Nora sat on her bed thinking, maybe her daughter was just lonely. Maybe the long hours were taking a toll. She promised herself to spend more time with her on her next day off. The next morning was bright and calm. Nora was preparing breakfast while Lily sat quietly at the table, her cereal untouched. "You're not hungry?" Nora asked. Lily just shook her head. She kept glancing toward the window, her face pale. When there was a knock on the door, Lily's spoon slipped from her hand, clattering against the bowl. Her body stiffened. Nora frowned and went to open the door. It was Ryan, smiling like always. "Good morning, Ms. Nora," he said politely. "Need me to look after Lily again today?" Lily's hand gripped the edge of the table tightly. Her eyes darted down, avoiding his face. Nora noticed that. She forced a smile. Yes, please." "Just until the afternoon," she said. But something about Lily's reaction made her uneasy. Before leaving, she crouched down to her daughter and said softly, "I'll be home soon, sweetheart. Be good, okay?" Lily nodded but didn't meet her eyes. All day, Nora couldn't focus at work. She kept thinking about that moment, the way Lily froze when Ryan knocked, the fear in her eyes. Maybe she was just being paranoid, she told herself. Kids sometimes get shy, maybe they had a small argument, nothing more. Still, that uneasy feeling refused to go away. When she got home later that day, the house was quiet again. Ryan was gone. Lily sat on the couch staring blankly at the TV that wasn't even turned on. Nora gently placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "How was your day?" Lily mumbled, "Okay," but her tone didn't sound okay at all. She kept her eyes on the floor, twisting her fingers nervously. Nora noticed faint marks on Lily's arm, like small bruises. Her heart skipped. "Lily, how did you get these?" she asked softly. Lily quickly pulled her sleeve down. "I fell." Nora studied her face. She knew her daughter wasn't clumsy. She wanted to ask more, but Lily's eyes filled with tears. So she just hugged her instead. "It's all right, sweetheart. You can tell Mommy anything, okay?" That night, after Lily fell asleep, Nora sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. Her thoughts were racing. She didn't want to accuse anyone without knowing the truth, but her instincts told her something wasn't right. The next few days followed the same pattern. Every time Ryan came by, Lily grew quiet and tense. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, and always asked if her mom could stay home. Nora started noticing things. Toys slightly moved, doors left ajar, and once, her living room window was open even though she remembered closing it before work. To ease her worry, Nora decided to install a small security camera near the front door. just for peace of mind. She told herself it was nothing serious, just being careful. 2 days later, she checked the footage casually after work. At first, it showed normal things: mail delivery, neighbors walking by. But then, around noon, she saw something that made her stomach twist. Ryan entering her apartment with his own key. Nora froze. She had given him the key only for emergencies, never for regular use. Her heart pounded as she watched the clip. The video showed him walking inside, closing the door and disappearing into the living room. 10 minutes later, Lily returned from her bedroom holding her toy bear. The screen didn't show what happened next because the camera only covered the hallway. Nora sat back in her chair, cold sweat running down her neck. She couldn't understand what he was doing there. Maybe he had a reason. Maybe he came to fix something or drop something off. But then she remembered the fear in Lily's eyes. It wasn't random. The next day, Nora decided to take a short leave from work. She wanted to stay home without letting anyone know. Early in the morning, she told Ryan she'd be working a double shift and wouldn't be back until late. He nodded casually as if everything was normal. When he left, she set up another small camera, this one hidden inside a photo frame in the living room. She kissed Lily's forehead before leaving for work, then parked her car a few blocks away where she could quietly check the live footage on her phone. Hours passed. Lily sat on the couch drawing quietly. Then just after noon, the door opened. Ryan walked in again. Nora's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She could see everything through the camera feed. Lily's head turned toward the door. Her expression changed instantly. Her face went pale and she dropped her pencil. Nora could hear faint sounds through the microphone. Ryan talking, Lily's trembling voice answering softly. Nora's chest tightened. She couldn't hear the words clearly, but she saw enough. Lily stood there frozen, clutching her toy bear while Ryan moved closer. Nora's heart raced. She wanted to storm in that second, but she forced herself to wait. She needed to see what was really happening before taking action. After a few minutes, the video glitched and the sound cut off. Nora's hand shook as she tried to reconnect. Her breath came fast, her mind filled with panic. She couldn't wait anymore. She started the car and drove straight home. When she entered the apartment, Lily ran into her arms instantly, tears streaming down her face. Ryan stood there, startled, his expression nervous. "I was just helping her with her homework," he said quickly. Nora didn't respond. Her eyes didn't leave his face. "You should go home," she said quietly. Her tone was calm, but her eyes were cold. He hesitated for a second, then left. After the door shut, Nora held Lily tightly, feeling her daughter's little heart racing against her chest. She didn't ask any more questions that night. She just let her rest, brushing her hair softly until she fell asleep. Later, when the apartment was silent, Nora sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts were heavy, filled with anger, fear, and confusion. She didn't know the full truth yet, but she knew one thing for sure. Something was deeply wrong, and she wasn't going to ignore it anymore. As she looked at her sleeping daughter, a quiet promise formed inside her heart. Whatever was happening, whoever was behind her child's fear, she would find out, and when she did, she wouldn't stay silent. That night, Nora didn't sleep. The mother in her had awakened, and once that happened, there was no going back. The next morning, Nora sat by the window, a cup of coffee in her hands that had already gone cold. She hadn't slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's frightened face from the day before. Her daughter's quiet sobs echoed in her head. Something deep inside her said that this wasn't just fear. It was something heavier, something that made a child lose her sense of safety. Lily woke up late, rubbing her eyes. When she saw her mother sitting there, she gave a small smile, as if trying to pretend nothing was wrong. Nora smiled back, hiding her worry. "Good morning, sweetheart." "Did you sleep well?" she asked softly. Lily nodded but didn't say much. She sat down for breakfast, pushing her food around the plate. Nora wanted to ask her about yesterday, but she didn't want to scare her. So she decided to take a gentle approach. "Hey," Nora said, trying to sound casual. "I was thinking maybe you and I could go somewhere fun today. Just us two." "How does that sound?" Lily's eyes lit up a little. "Can we go to the park?" she asked quietly. "Of course," Nora said, smiling. "Anywhere you want." At the park, Lily ran around the swings, her laughter echoing faintly. For the first time in days, Nora saw a glimpse of her old self. The sight made her heart ache with both relief and sadness. She sat on a bench watching her daughter, thinking about what to do next. She knew she couldn't ignore what was happening. But she also knew she needed to handle it carefully. Lily was sensitive. Pushing her too hard might make her shut down even more. After lunch, they went home. Lily took a nap while Nora quietly opened her laptop and reviewed the video footage again. She watched frame by frame. Ryan had entered the house twice that week without calling first. He always stayed for a while and left before Nora came home. He moved around too comfortably as if the house was his. That alone made her uneasy. Later that evening, Nora decided to speak to Ryan's mother. They lived just down the hallway, so she walked over and knocked on their door. Ryan's mother, a kind-looking woman in her 50s, greeted her warmly. "Oh, Nora. Come in, dear. How are you?" Nora forced a polite smile and stepped inside. The apartment smelled of freshly baked bread. She hesitated, then said, "I just wanted to talk about something. It's about Lily and Ryan." Ryan's mother looked surprised. "Oh, did something happen?" Nora chose her words carefully. "Lily has been acting strange lately, quiet, scared even. And I've noticed Ryan coming to my apartment even when I'm not home. I'm not saying he's done anything wrong, but I'd appreciate if he didn't come by unless I'm there." The woman frowned slightly, then chuckled softly as if brushing it off. "Oh, Ryan's a good boy. He would never do anything bad. Maybe your little one is just going through a phase. Kids get scared for all sorts of reasons." Nora's jaw tightened. She didn't want to argue, but the dismissive tone bothered her. "Maybe," she said calmly. "Still, I'd prefer if he stayed out when I'm not home. Just to be safe." The woman nodded politely but didn't seem to take her seriously. Nora left soon after, feeling more frustrated than before. When she got back, Lily was sitting on the couch hugging her teddy bear. Her eyes were on the TV, but she wasn't really watching. Nora sat down beside her and asked softly, "Did you have a nice nap?" Lily nodded. There was a long pause. Then in a tiny voice she whispered, "Mommy, can I tell you something?" Nora's heart skipped. She turned quickly. "Of course, sweetheart. You can tell me anything." Lily hesitated, her lips trembling slightly. Then she said, "When you're gone, I don't like when he comes here." Nora felt her stomach drop. "Why, baby? Did he say something?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "He gets mad when I don't talk. He says I'm rude. I don't mean to be, I just get scared." Nora hugged her gently, hiding the fire rising inside her. "You never have to see him again, okay? I promise." That night, after putting Lily to bed, Nora sat alone in the living room. She played Lily's words over and over in her mind. "He gets mad when I don't talk." That was enough. Even if it was just yelling or scaring her, it was unacceptable. Her child deserved peace. Still, Nora wanted proof. She didn't want to rely only on assumptions. She needed something solid, something she could show if she ever had to report it. So she checked the footage again, but it didn't show what happened inside. The hallway camera only caught Ryan entering and leaving. That's when she decided to get a small indoor camera. The next morning, she bought one and placed it carefully inside a photo frame in the living room, aimed toward the couch area. She made sure it blended in naturally. That same day, she told Ryan she'd be working another long shift. He nodded and said he'd keep an eye on Lily. Nora smiled faintly, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, her mind was set. She would finally know what was happening. She parked her car near the corner store and opened the live camera feed on her phone. For a while, everything looked normal. Lily was drawing quietly at the table. Then, a few minutes later, the front door opened. Ryan stepped inside. Nora's grip on her phone tightened. He walked around like he belonged there, glancing toward Lily. Nora could hear faint voices, though not very clear. She saw Lily's head drop, her little hands gripping her crayon tightly. Ryan said something, she couldn't hear what, and Lily shook her head. He stepped closer, speaking again in a louder tone. Nora's chest burned with anger. Her instincts screamed to go in right that second, but she waited. She needed to see enough to understand exactly what was going on. For several minutes, he stood there talking to Lily. She didn't say much. He seemed to get annoyed. Nora couldn't hear everything, but she saw enough of his body language, sharp gestures, the way he leaned forward, and it made her blood boil. She finally closed the app and started the car. Her patience had reached its limit. By the time she reached home, Ryan was sitting on the couch pretending to help Lily with her drawings. Lily looked pale and nervous. Nora's voice was calm but cold. "Thank you for helping, Ryan. You can go now." He blinked, confused. "Oh, sure. I was just now," she repeated firmly. Her tone left no room for argument. Ryan grabbed his backpack and left quickly. The moment the door closed, Nora sat beside her daughter. "You okay, sweetheart?" Lily nodded weakly but leaned into her. Nora held her close and whispered, "You're safe. Mommy's here now." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Nora replayed the footage from earlier. The video clearly showed Ryan entering, raising his voice and scolding Lily for something trivial. It wasn't violent, but it was enough to make a child terrified. His tone was sharp, his posture intimidating. Nora's heart broke watching it. She paused the video halfway through and closed her eyes. She could handle exhaustion, loneliness, and stress, but not her child's fear. The next day, Nora went to her workplace and requested a few days off. "Family emergency," she said. Her supervisor, noticing the exhaustion on her face, approved it without question. At home, she spent the entire day with Lily, baking cookies, painting, and watching her favorite cartoons. The laughter slowly returned, little by little. Every smile felt like a small victory. Still, Nora couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. She knew Ryan's mother wouldn't believe her if she tried to talk again. She needed to handle it differently this time, quietly, smartly, but with strength. That evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, the little girl whispered, "Mommy, are you mad?" Nora smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. I'm just thinking," Lily hesitated. "Are you mad at me?" Nora's heart softened instantly. "Oh no, baby, never. None of this is your fault. I'm just making sure no one makes you scared again." Lily nodded sleepily and hugged her teddy bear. "You're the best mommy," she murmured before drifting off. Nora sat there for a while, brushing her daughter's hair gently. In that moment, she made herself a promise. She would never let anyone hurt her child's peace again. She didn't care what it took. She was done being polite, done waiting for others to take her seriously. As she turned off the light, her reflection in the mirror caught her attention. Her eyes looked tired but determined. There was a quiet fire in them, the kind that comes only from love and pain mixed together. She whispered softly to herself, "You messed with the wrong child, and with that..." The gentle nurse who once avoided confrontation began to transform into something else, a mother who was ready to protect her child at any cost. The morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, falling across Nora's face as she sat on the edge of her bed, lost in thought. She hadn't slept much. The video from the day before kept replaying in her mind. Every time she saw her daughter sitting quietly while Ryan spoke harshly, her heart filled with anger and guilt. She had trusted him. She had left her little girl in his care. Now every ounce of that trust felt like a mistake she could never undo. Lily was still asleep, her tiny hand resting on her teddy bear. For a few minutes, Nora just watched her, listening to her calm breathing. That sound, that peace, was what she had to protect. She promised herself again that no one would take that from her daughter ever again. Later that morning, Nora made pancakes, the way Lily liked them, with a smiley face drawn in syrup. When Lily walked into the kitchen rubbing her eyes, Nora smiled warmly. "Morning, sunshine. Hungry?" Lily nodded shyly. Yes. They ate together, and for a while it almost felt normal again. But Nora could still see that faint shadow in Lily's eyes, the one that shouldn't exist in a child. It was fear mixed with silence. After breakfast, Nora said softly, "Sweetheart, remember when Mommy told you that you can always tell me the truth?" Lily looked down, twisting her fingers. "Yes. Good," Nora said. "You did nothing wrong, okay? You never have to be scared of telling me something." Lily hesitated, then whispered, "I know." She smiled faintly, but Nora could tell she was still holding something back. Nora decided not to push her further that moment. She knew the time would come when Lily would open up fully. For now, her job was to keep her safe and make her feel loved again. That afternoon, Nora went downstairs to collect a package. On her way back, she saw Ryan in the hallway, leaning against the railing, scrolling through his phone. The sight of him made her heart race with anger, but she kept her expression calm. He looked up and smiled politely. "Hey, Miss Nora, how's Lily?" "She's fine," Nora said shortly. Ryan nodded, still casual. "I can come by later if you need help again." Nora met his eyes. Her voice stayed steady. "No, I don't need your help anymore. You won't be watching Lily again. His smile faded a little. Oh, sure. Did I do something wrong? You know exactly what you did, Nora said quietly. Don't come to my apartment again. She didn't wait for his answer. She turned and walked away, her steps firm. Behind her, she could feel his stare, but she didn't look back. When she got home, she locked the door and double-checked the latch. Lily was sitting on the floor coloring. Nora smiled and joined her, pretending nothing had happened. But inside, her mind was already planning what to do next. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Nora called her friend Clara, who worked as a teacher at Lily's school. Hey, she said quietly, I need to ask you something. Have you noticed anything strange about Lily at school lately? Like if she's been quiet or jumpy? Clara sighed. Actually, yes. She's been withdrawn. She used to be so talkative, but now she barely speaks in class. She flinches when someone raises their voice. Nora closed her eyes. That confirmed it. Thanks for telling me, she said softly. Is everything okay? Clara asked. I'm handling it, Nora replied. The next day, Nora went to the small electronics store and bought another camera, one with better audio and motion alerts. She set it up carefully in the living room and another near the front door. She didn't plan to use them forever, just long enough to make sure Lily was safe when she wasn't home. But that evening, something unexpected happened. There was a knock on the door. When Nora opened it, Ryan's mother was standing there. Her arms were crossed, her face tense. Can I talk to you for a second? She asked. Nora nodded slowly. Sure. The woman stepped inside. Ryan told me you accused him of something. He's upset. He says he was only helping and now you're spreading stories about him. Nora kept her tone calm. I haven't told anyone anything, but I've seen how my daughter reacts around him, and I've seen him enter my home without permission. That's enough reason to keep him away. The woman frowned. He probably just came in to help. You know, he's always been a good boy. Maybe your daughter misunderstood something. Nora's patience thinned. Maybe. But my daughter's comfort matters more to me than his reputation. The woman shook her head. You're overreacting, Nora. Nora took a deep breath. If it were your child, would you still call it overreacting? For a second, the older woman didn't answer. Then she muttered, Fine, and left the apartment, shutting the door behind her. Nora exhaled slowly, trying to calm her pounding heart. She felt angry, but more than that, she felt determined. This wasn't about being believed anymore. It was about protecting her daughter no matter what anyone thought. Over the next few days, Nora noticed that Ryan stayed away. He didn't knock, didn't linger in the hallway, didn't even make eye contact when they passed. But Lily's nervous habits didn't disappear right away. Every little sound made her flinch. Sometimes she asked to sleep in Nora's bed again. Nora never said no. One evening, while Nora was folding laundry, Lily spoke softly from her spot on the couch. Mommy? Yes, baby? Lily hesitated. You're not mad at me, right? Nora frowned, setting the clothes aside. Mad? Why would I be mad? Lily looked down. Because I told you I don't like when he comes here. Nora's heart broke a little at those words. She knelt beside her daughter and took her tiny hands. Oh, sweetheart, listen to me. You did the right thing. You were very brave. You'll never get in trouble for telling Mommy how you feel, okay? Lily's eyes filled with tears and she hugged Nora tightly. Promise? I promise, Nora whispered, holding her close. That night, when Lily was asleep, Nora sat on the couch and watched her home's camera footage again. It showed peace. Just a quiet home, her daughter playing with her toys. For once, that made her smile. She knew it wasn't over, but it was progress. Days passed and things slowly began to change. Lily started talking more again. She drew pictures of her and her mom holding hands. She smiled a little wider. Nora noticed that she laughed more freely when they watched cartoons together. Each laugh was like a tiny piece of healing. But deep down, Nora still couldn't shake the memory of those old videos. The fear in Lily's eyes haunted her. She decided to keep the cameras running for a while longer just in case. One Friday evening, while Nora was washing dishes, she heard the faint buzz of her phone. A motion alert from the camera. Her heart skipped. She checked the feed immediately. It showed the front door, slightly open. Nora's chest tightened. She looked toward the living room. Lily was there, coloring on the floor, unaware. Nora walked quickly to the door and found it unlatched. She stepped into the hallway, scanning around. No one was there, but something about the moment felt off, like a warning. She closed the door and locked it carefully. Later that night, when Lily was asleep, Nora reviewed the footage again. The camera had captured a shadow in the hallway for a brief second, like someone standing near the door before it opened. The angle was too dark to see clearly, but it sent chills down her spine. She knew what she had to do now. Waiting wasn't enough. She had to take the next step. Talk to the police, get proper protection, and make sure no one could come near her daughter again. The next morning, she took Lily for a walk by the lake. The air was fresh and the water sparkled under the sun. They sat on a bench feeding ducks. Nora held Lily's hand, feeling a strange mix of peace and strength. "Mommy?" Lily said softly. "Yes, baby? Are we safe now?" Nora looked at her and smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe, and we always will be. I promise." Lily smiled, leaning against her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, she looked completely calm. As they sat there, Nora realized something. Fear doesn't disappear overnight, but courage, and especially a mother's courage, grows quietly like light through the cracks. She wasn't the same woman she had been a few weeks ago. She was stronger now, sharper, ready to protect her child against anything. And as the wind blew softly across the water, Nora knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it with fear anymore. She would face it with fury, with love, and with the strength of a mother who had seen her child's tears and decided enough was enough. That morning started quietly. Nora had barely slept, her mind replaying the image she had seen on her phone the day before. Her little girl sitting in fear, clutching her toy, while someone much older stood too close, speaking harshly. She had held back her tears that night because she didn't want to scare Lily even more. But now her heart burned with something stronger than fear. It was anger mixed with pain. She woke early, packed Lily's small lunch, and helped her get ready for school. Lily was quiet again, barely touching her breakfast. Nora tried to smile and asked softly, "Are you feeling okay, sweetheart?" Lily nodded without looking up. Her small fingers twisted the edge of her napkin, showing she was nervous about something. Nora kissed her forehead and whispered, "You don't have to be scared anymore. I promise." When Lily left for school, Nora stood at the window watching her walk down the street. Every step reminded her of how small and innocent her daughter still was. That was all the reason she needed to act. She turned away, took a deep breath, and grabbed her phone. She had already saved the video footage from the hidden camera. She watched it once more, her hands trembling. The moment she saw Lily's frightened face, she knew she couldn't wait any longer. Nora walked straight to the apartment next door. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice calm when Ryan's mother opened the door. "Good morning," Nora said quietly. "Can we talk for a minute?" The woman looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, come in." Nora stepped inside. The house was filled with the smell of coffee and breakfast, a normal morning for them. She looked around. The family photos on the wall, the smiling faces, and felt a wave of disbelief. How could someone from such a home cause her child so much fear? "I wanted to talk about something important," Nora began. Her tone was controlled but firm. "It's about Lily," the woman smiled politely. "Oh yes, such a sweet girl. Ryan says she's a little shy." Nora's expression hardened. "She's shy because she's scared." "Scared of your son?" The smile faded from the woman's face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I know what's been happening when I'm not home," Nora said, her voice shaking slightly. "I've seen it. I have proof," the woman frowned. "That's ridiculous. Ryan wouldn't." Nora cut her off. "Please, don't tell me what your son wouldn't do. I saw him in my house when I wasn't there. I saw how he spoke to my daughter. You can believe what you want, but I know what I saw." For a moment, the woman didn't speak. Then she crossed her arms and said sharply, "Maybe your daughter misunderstood something. Kids imagine things." Nora took a deep breath. "I wish it were just imagination." She turned and left without another word. Once she was back inside her own apartment, she leaned against the door and finally let her emotions out. Tears rolled down her face, not just from anger but from disappointment. She had hoped Ryan's mother would understand, maybe even apologize, but instead she had tried to deny it. That night, Nora couldn't focus on anything. She wanted to protect Lily, but she also knew she needed solid proof that no one could ignore. She sat in her living room, staring at the small camera she had used before. After a moment of thought, She decided to set up another one hidden in a place that captured more of the living area. If Ryan tried to come again, there would be no excuses, no doubts, and no denial. The next day, Nora pretended to go to work. She dressed in her uniform, kissed Lily goodbye, and told her neighbor she'd be on a long shift. But instead of driving to the hospital, she parked her car down the street where she could see her apartment building. Her phone was connected to the live feed from the camera. She waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Her heart raced with every sound. Then she saw movement on her screen. Ryan was at her door again. He looked around before using the spare key he had somehow copied earlier. Nora's chest tightened. She watched as he walked into the apartment. Inside, Lily was sitting quietly on the couch with her toy. The moment she saw him, she froze. Ryan said something, and though Nora couldn't hear clearly through the feed, she could tell it wasn't kind. He moved closer, and Lily began to cry softly, covering her face with her hands. That was it. Nora couldn't sit there any longer. She started her car and drove back faster than she ever had. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She didn't feel fear anymore. She felt something far stronger, the fire that only a mother can feel when someone hurts her child. Within minutes, she was home. She ran up the stairs, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. When she reached the door, she didn't hesitate. She burst in. Ryan froze. The color drained from his face. He tried to say something, but Nora's glare stopped him cold. Her voice was calm, but it carried a power that made him step back. "Get out," she said. He opened his mouth again, but she repeated louder this time. "Get out now." Ryan took a step back, stammering. "Don't you dare speak," Nora interrupted. Her voice cracked with emotion, but her eyes stayed locked on him. "You have no right to be here. You've scared my daughter for the last time. If I ever see you near her again, you'll answer to more than me. You'll answer to the police." Ryan's face turned pale. He looked at Lily, who was crying quietly behind her mother, then turned and ran out the door without another word. The apartment fell silent. Nora turned around and knelt down to hold her daughter. Lily buried her face in her mother's shoulder and sobbed. Nora held her close, whispering again and again, "It's okay now. You're safe. I'm here. I promise." They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other. Nora's heart broke at how small and frightened Lily felt in her arms. She wished she could erase every tear, every moment of fear, but she also knew this wasn't over. She wasn't going to let this be just another story that faded away. After calming Lily, she tucked her into bed and turned off the lights. Then she sat at the table with her phone, opened the folder with the video footage, and watched it again. Every second of it was painful to see, but she knew it was necessary. The world needed to see what her little girl had gone through. The next morning, Nora walked into the police station. The officer at the front desk looked up and asked how he could help. Nora spoke softly but firmly. "I need to file a report," she said. "I have video evidence." She handed over her phone and explained what had been happening, carefully avoiding the details that might sound too emotional. The officer watched the footage, his face growing serious. "You did the right thing coming here," he said finally. "We'll take it from here." Nora nodded, holding back tears. "Just make sure he never gets the chance to hurt anyone else." As she walked out of the station, the morning sun touched her face. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe again. Her hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore, from strength. When she returned home, Lily ran to her and hugged her tight. Nora smiled through her tears and said, "It's over now." Lily looked up at her mother, eyes wide and full of relief. "Really?" she asked. Nora nodded. "Really? No one will ever scare you again." That night, when Lily finally fell asleep peacefully, Nora stood by her bedside watching her breathe. The small, gentle rise and fall of her chest was a reminder of why she had fought so hard. A mother's love wasn't just about caring. It was about protecting, no matter the cost. The fear that had once filled their home was gone. In its place was quiet, a calm that came from knowing the truth was finally out. Nora didn't need to shout or fight anymore. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. She looked down at her daughter, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "You're safe now, my love. No one will ever hurt you again." Outside, the city lights flickered softly against the night sky, and inside that small apartment, a mother's fury had turned into peace, the kind that comes only after standing up for what's right. Days passed slowly after that night. The apartment, once filled with tension and fear, felt quiet now, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was a peaceful kind of stillness, like the world was finally giving Nora and Lily time to breathe. The police had already taken action, and Ryan was no longer anywhere near them. Nora still couldn't erase the memory of what had happened, but each morning she reminded herself that she had done the right thing. Lily started to sleep better. At first, she still woke up in the middle of the night and ran to her mother's room. Nora would always wake instantly, lift her daughter into her arms and whisper, "It's okay, I'm here." Over time, those nights became fewer. The house began to feel safe again, the way it used to be before fear crept in. One afternoon, Nora sat on the couch watching Lily draw. The little girl was coloring a picture of a big house with a smiling sun. There was even a tiny heart floating over the roof. "That's our home," Lily said softly. "And that's us," Nora smiled, her eyes misty. "It's beautiful," she whispered. For a moment, it felt like everything was normal again. But deep inside, Nora knew the healing wasn't complete. She wanted her daughter to feel free again, not just safe, but happy, confident, and unafraid of the world. So she took the advice the officer had given her earlier and decided to meet a child counselor. The woman she met, kind and soft-spoken, explained that Lily might take time to open up again, but that patience and love would help her heal. Nora nodded, ready to do whatever it took. The first counseling session was quiet. Lily didn't say much, just sat holding her toy bear. But the counselor was patient, asking gentle questions and letting her draw pictures instead of talking. Little by little, the words began to come out, not all at once, but slowly, like tiny steps toward healing. When they left the office, Nora held her daughter's hand and said, "You were so brave today." Lily looked up at her and asked, "Do I have to go again?" Nora smiled. "Only if you want to, but you did really well." Over the next few weeks, Lily began to laugh more often. She started humming while brushing her teeth, something Nora hadn't heard in months. She even began sleeping in her own bed again, proudly telling her mother in the morning, "See, I stayed all night." Nora's heart filled with gratitude each time she saw her daughter smile. She knew she couldn't change the past, but she could build a better future, one where Lily would always know she was protected, loved, and believed. Meanwhile, the investigation continued quietly. Nora didn't have to appear in court right away, but she stayed in touch with the officers handling the case. One of them called to say, "The evidence you gave us was very strong. You did the right thing by recording it." Nora thanked him, though her voice was soft. "I didn't do it for revenge," she said. "I just wanted to make sure no one else goes through what my daughter did." The officer paused for a moment and replied, "That's exactly what makes you a good mother." That night, as Nora cooked dinner, she looked around her small kitchen. The flickering light, the smell of warm food, the sound of Lily's laughter echoing from the living room. For the first time in a long while, she felt peace. She didn't need a bigger house or a perfect life. All she needed was this: her daughter's smile, her safety, and the quiet strength that had grown inside her. A few months later, spring arrived. The air was warm and the trees outside their building began to bloom again. One weekend, Nora took Lily to the park. It was the same park they used to visit before everything changed. At first, Lily hesitated to run off and play. She stood close, gripping Nora's hand tightly. "Go on," Nora encouraged softly. "I'm right here." Lily looked at her mother's face, searching for reassurance. Then slowly she let go and ran toward the swings. Her laughter filled the air, light, free, and full of life. Nora sat on a nearby bench, watching her with pride. A tear rolled down her cheek, but it wasn't from sadness this time. It was relief. When Lily ran back, out of breath and smiling, Nora hugged her tightly. "You see?" she said. "You're so strong," Lily giggled. "You're strong too, Mom." That small sentence made Nora's heart skip. She didn't realize how much her daughter noticed, how much strength she had passed on just by standing up and refusing to stay silent. From that day on, Nora and Lily made a promise to each other. They would always tell the truth, no matter how hard it was, and they would never let fear silence them again. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset from their balcony, Lily leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mom," she said quietly, "I used to be scared all the time, but now I'm not." Nora kissed her forehead. "You were brave even when you were scared. That's what bravery really means. The sun slowly dipped below the buildings, painting the sky orange and pink. It felt like a new beginning and a calm after the storm.